Alright. Hello guys, welcome, and if you've already seen my channel before, welcome back. I'm the Philadelphia Whovian, and guys, if you guys have seen my channel before, you'll notice I'm not in the same environment I usually am. This is my next night in New York City. I'm only here for a few days, so I figured, okay, I'll just rattle off some videos while I'm here in the Big Apple. I know I should be going out clubbing, but you know what? I defy that idea that all black people have rhythm and can dance. It sucks, but what can you do? There's always one of us to break the good old rule that's actually one of the positive stereotypes to your culture. So, welcome, and this is in my next video of There and Back Again, because I've been so busy watching a lot of classic Who that I haven't been watching new Who for a bit. So I figured I'd just start watching some new Who episodes again to revisit them, and I started with ones that I actually very much like. So with this one, my next venture back into New Who of I was there, now I've gone back again. It is the episode of the first episode of the 10th Doctor with Martha Jones, if you don't include the Christmas special, as the very first episode of the season. If you don't regard it as that, just as a Christmas special, the very first episode of that season, which is Smith and Jones from Series 3. Smith and Jones, if you haven't seen it, the plot of it is relatively simple. The doctor has checked into a hospital because he knows there are plasma cores around the hospital, so he checked in under the name John Smith, a name that he has used as an alias ever since classic Who. Very much, it goes back for a long time. And Martha Jones is a doctor at this hospital. She checks his pulse, but has the impulse to check his pulse actually in two different parts of his body. So she actually checks the pulse for both hearts. And this immediately intrigued the doctor. And even before this happens, she met him on the street where his future self actually went back in time to prove that he can travel through time. But so he really kind of is quite amazed that she checks both of his pulses, and he winks at her and even smiles at her as she's leaving and stares at her, and then he keeps investigating. Then all of a sudden, Martha is in the hospital with everybody else, and there was raining around the hospital, and the rain is going up, which means suddenly the hospital gets literally lifted up from out of Earth and lands on the moon. It was literally transported to the moon. Why? Because of the race called the Jadoon. Sorry, it's a hard word to say. Jadoon. There we go, Jadoon. Who are like interplanetary thugs who are hired as to be police sometimes. And the reason why they took the hospital and put it on the moon is because they had no jurisdiction on Earth. None at all. But they could go on the moon to isolate the hospital, and they could search throughout the hospital for a prisoner who is a plasmavore, an escaped convict, who killed a child princess. And she is an old woman who walks around with a straw in her pocket and has these two guards who are called slabs, who are like literally leather, all leather, going through it. And Martha, the doctor immediately gets intrigued by Martha because she's very smart and deduces that, you know, the air would have been sucked out of the hospital immediately, so why hasn't it been? It turns out there is a bubble sealing them in around the moon, around where they are stationed, so they are not suffocating just yet. But eventually they will run out of air. And Martha is the one who discovers the plasmavore, who the identity of the plasmavore was, and she and the doctor spend a great deal of the episode running around the hospital trying to escape, while at the same time trying to get the Jadoon to figure out who the plasmavore is. To convince, because it turns out she assimilated, so she drunk Mr. Stoker's blood, who is Martha's superior in the hospital, so she could register as human, but the doctor tricks her into taking his blood, where he pretty much dies almost, and then Martha uses a scanner to scan her to show that she's an alien, and the Jadoon do execute the plasmavore. And Martha gives her dying breath to save the doctor, so the doctor can could pretty much shut down the machine that she was using to burn up half of Earth. She literally was going to do that. And Martha Jones, gives her dying breath after she identified the plasmavore to get the doctor to wake up, and then he turns the machine off, and then he's walking through the hospital with her in his arms, and he hopes that June will reverse and send them back to Earth before they all die of suffocation, which they do. The doctor leaves. She goes to a party with her brother, where pretty much Martha is the only sane one in the family, or only one who can keep control over family. It's complete madness all around her, which is showing that Martha has a lot of responsibility on her all the time. And then she gets the doctor, who shows up again at her brother's party, completely uninvited, not knowing the directions, which means he showed up at her brother's party, meaning he followed her. And then he lures her down an alleyway, and he asks her to go out with him to into space. And then she goes on the ship with him, because it's bigger on the inside. She's amazed. All she asks simply is, do you have a crew with you? And he brings up Rose, and he says immediately, not that you're replacing her. And he immediately starts a chain reaction, where he is going to be comparing her to Rose, making her feel like she is not on the same level. And he says, one trip and you get back. And I'd rather be on his own, despite the fact that he just showed up at her brother's party, unannounced, uninvited, without being given directions, and was going to take her away. And then he says, I would prefer to be on my own, while he's doing all this. This is an episode which oftentimes is not regarded as anything special. My thoughts? I love this episode. I think Smith and Jones is overall a very fun episode I can rewatch over and over again. And I enjoy all of it up until the part where the doctor just turns on her and says, not that you're replacing Rose, when she never said she was. She even said to him, I never said I was. He literally got defensive really quickly when all she asked is, did you have a crew? He literally brought on the rebound role on Martha. He was the one who put it on Martha. She didn't put it on herself. He put it on her. And therefore, because he put it on her, the whole audience put it on her and kept blaming Martha, when he was the one who brought that into the story, and he brought that drama and tension into their relationship when there was no need to do it. There really was no need. But people always seem to remember it in a very different fashion, as if she hit on him from the very beginning. My thoughts to that, well, if you're going to blame her for that, shouldn't you also address the fact the doctor showed up at her brother's party, unannounced, uninvited, following her, and then lured her down an alleyway? I think stalking is more aggressive than possible flirting, and if it's even flirting that much. Even when she brought up that he kissed her, and then she's like, you traveled all the way across town to ask me on a date. But look at his actions. It indicates all those things. He's the one who brought up Rose and brought up the rebound thing. He's the one who brought the tension really into the relationship. It's just people seem to remember it in a very different way. And I wonder if people's hatred for this episode is simply their natural inclination to hate Martha. I don't know what it is, but the actual story, for me, it's not bad. I get interested in it. I enjoy it overall up until that point. And even then, that point doesn't ruin it for me, because I love how it ends, where they go off and it's bumpy, and he said, welcome aboard, Miss Jones. It's my pleasure, Mr. Smith, she replies, and they shake hands. That is a very charming exit to the episode. I would like to not brought the whole rebound thing into it, but he did, and I can't take it back. It happened. And even more scandalous, this is my favorite of the RTD series openers. I know, everyone hails it as the worst, but I think it's by far the best. I think it's way better than New Earth. New Earth. And then I don't hate Partners in Crime. I don't have the inclination to go back and rewatch Partners in Crime that much. It's not bad, it's just something I don't rewatch. And yes, even more scandalous opinion, I think it's better than Rose. I know, how dare I think it's better than Rose? I do, because for all the reasons I've said before in my previous stories, my previous videos, when I talk about Series 1, for me, Rose is just a copy of the episode from Third Doctor era, Spearhead from Space, but not as good. It's just not. It's being objective. And the fact is, by the end of Smith and Jones, I really like Martha. By the end of Rose, I wasn't that big on Rose, the character Rose herself. And you're thinking, how dare you not be big on Rose? But the fact is, I'm not big on Rose because, as you see in my previous videos, I just don't like that ending with Mickey. I know people think it's perfectly fine. She was right to treat him that way. I don't. And if you're thinking, oh, because he was going to let the doctor die, I've said before, I think it's no different than when Rose didn't help the doctor in Father's Day when the monster was coming towards him. I don't think it's any different than that. But also, on top of that, you know, the doctor looked like he was dead, but also it was, Mickey's young. He's a young man who's like, what, 18 years old? He's a teenager. You know, young people make mistakes, but on top of that, this is your boyfriend who you abandoned when he made one mistake in a very cold-hearted manner. She and the doctor did not appear to me as heroic in that manner. They felt cold. Both the Ninth Doctor and Rose felt very cold-hearted in that manner for me. And also, if you're still thinking, well, Rose was justified for abandoning her boyfriend who she was in a relationship with because he made that mistake, and you think she's justified, okay, here's the thing. Here's how I look at Mickey, the way I look at every other man, the way many men who are fathers or brothers or, you know, sons look at women sometimes. Imagine, like, Mickey was a younger version of my father or my brother, you know, or I became a mother and he was my son. You're telling me that I should be okay with, like, my father being abandoned, being thrown aside practically because he made one mistake in the heat of the moment where he was scared. If a woman like Rose treated my father that way because he made one mistake when he was 18 years old, I'm not going to lie, my first impulse as a daughter would be to grab her and just smack the crap out of her, say, don't treat my father that way. That's how I look at men. It's the same way that men would look at women. For example, if the roles were reversed, if they were, and Rose was not a girl, she was a guy named Richard. Mickey was a woman named Mary. So Rose is Richard, and Mickey is Mary. Now take that image, what happened with Rose and Mickey at the very end. Replace the genders. Rose is a boy. Mickey is a girl. Now look at that action. I promise you, Doctor Who would never have lasted more than 5 episodes if the roles had been reversed and Richard had did exactly to Mary what Rose did to Mickey. And once the audience saw Richard shove Mary aside and say, thanks for nothing, the way Rose did, the entire fan base would have been in uproar that a man treated a woman that way. And think of it as this way. If you're a man watching this, how would you want, if your daughter was 18 years old and she pulled what Mickey went through? Mickey was a girl and that was your daughter. She was scared, she was young, she was stupid, but she was young. She made a mistake like that. Now, imagine that was a girl. That was your daughter, guys, your child. Now imagine a guy named Richard doing that to your daughter. What would you do to that guy? What would you do to him? You really think that's a cool action? See, if you think I'm overreacting, I understand, but you have to understand, I am someone's daughter. I am my brother's sister. If a woman did that to my father, or a woman did that to my brother, no, I have every right to smack her. I have every right to be angry and grab her and pull her aside and say, you don't treat my father or my brother or any man in my family that way. You don't do that. And trust me, if you're a guy, you would love to have a daughter like me. You would. Because we respect you. We are your child. That's why I can't love that moment. And if you think I'm overreacting, it's fine. But don't tell me I don't have the right to feel that way. Because I have a right as a man's daughter to feel that way. That's why I just can't like that moment. And that just brought the episode even further down for me. I never cared much for Rose because I knew what it was just taking from. It was taking from Spearhead from Space. A really good episode from the Third Doctor era. It's my favorite classic Who story. Or one of them at least. So it was never on that pinnacle with me. But when that moment happened, you have to understand as a woman watching this, thinking, how would I want men in my family to be treated? If you think I'm overreacting, no, you have to understand I have a right to care about how men in my family would be treated. So I have to think of Mickey. I have to. He made a mistake, but he was young. He made a mistake. But I cannot afford to think I would ever let any man be treated like that in my family, so I have to regard Mickey. The way if you had a daughter, men, or you had your mom, imagine, okay, if you don't have a daughter, imagine this. Imagine Mickey is your mom, and a man did what Rose did to your mom. What would you do to that man? Stop and think about that. Just stop and think about that. So, before you think I'm evil for not liking Rose that much at the end of that episode, you have to see where I'm coming from. You have to. and you have to respect it. You don't have to agree with me. You don't even have to like what I'm saying, but you damn sure had better respect it. So that's why I think I like Martha by the end. That's why I like Smith and Jones more. I do like Martha. I don't really like the doctor that much at the end because of what he did to her and made her immediately feel like a rebound and like she wouldn't compare to a woman she never met. A teenager she never met. I don't like him that much at that moment, but I do like Martha, and that was enough to carry me over. Whereas at the end of Rose, I didn't like the doctor or Rose at the end of that episode. I like Rose sometimes, I don't like her other times, but I don't like her then. So Rose would never be on the same level to me as Smith and Jones. Neither New Earth will never be on the same level as Smith and Jones. Partners in Crime I like, just not as much. So that's why it's my favorite of the RTD series openers. But overall, yes, I absolutely do like Smith and Jones. I understand why those people don't like it. It's not your thing, fine, but don't hate me because I do like it. It's just me. It's just me, guys. One person can disagree with you. And please, again, if you disagree with other things I've said in this video, it's fine. But please understand where I'm coming from. And I have a right to come from that direction. So thank you guys for watching my next video, and I hope to do another There and Back Again video. It's a Philadelphia Whovian's tale set here in America. Thank you guys so very much, and I hope to see you again very soon. Bye guys.